A dog in the Vatican gardens. Somebody better explain this, or I swear I'll turn the Holy See into a pet rescue by sundown. Captain Lorenzo, commander of the Swiss Guard, bellowed in the marble corridor, his voice thundering through the sacred hush of the Vatican on a spring morning in 2025. Inside these ancient walls, where every footstep carried centuries of ritual, something unthinkable was stirring. A scruffy, limping dog, ribs jutting under a matted coat, crouched at the edge of the Vatican gardens, eyes flickering between fear and hope. No one knew how it slipped past the guards or why it lingered near the olive trees, but its presence was about to upend the Holy See's sacred order. In the Apostolic Palace, Pope Francis sat at his desk, hands trembling as he penned a letter. The weight of his papacy, guiding 1 billion Catholics through a fractured world, pressed heavier each day. His health was fading, breath shorter, but his heart still burned with a mission, to remind the world that love was the only currency that mattered. Sister Cecilia, he called, voice soft but steady. The nun who'd tended him for years appeared at the door, her face etched with quiet devotion. "Yes, Holy Father. You hear the commotion out there?" he asked, eyes glinting with something she couldn't quite read. "There's a visitor in the gardens. Not the usual kind." She frowned, puzzled. "A visitor? A cardinal? A diplomat?" He chuckled, a rare sound these days. "No, sister. A dog. Scruffy one, by the old fountain. Saw him this morning." Her brows shot up. "A dog? In the Vatican gardens? That's unheard of." "Unheard of? Yes," Francis said, leaning back. "But not unwelcome. Go find him. See if he's hungry." Sister Cecilia hesitated. The Vatican wasn't a place for strays. Protocol demanded order, prayer, sacraments, dignitaries, not feeding random animals. But Francis's eyes, warm yet unyielding, told her this was no suggestion. "I'll see what I can do, Holy Father," she said, bowing slightly before hurrying out. In the gardens, the dog, later named Esteban, crouched under a bush, ears twitching at every sound. Sister Cecilia approached cautiously, a piece of bread in hand. She knelt, her habit brushing the grass, and whispered, "Hey, little guy, you lost." The dog froze, eyes locking onto hers. They were wide, raw, pleading, like he'd long ago learned not to trust. She set the bread down and backed away, watching as he sniffed the air, then crept forward to snatch it. "Got a name?" she murmured, half to herself. "Were you just passing through?" As she stood, Brother Matteo, a young seminarian, jogged up, face flushed. "Sister, the guards are losing it. They saw the dog. Captain Lorenzo's calling it a security breach." "A security breach?" Cecilia laughed, glancing at the trembling mutt. "This guy? He can barely stand." "Tell that to Lorenzo," Matteo said, wincing. "He's got half the Swiss Guard ready to chase it out." She sighed, brushing dirt off her hands. "Let me talk to him. The Holy Father wants this dog fed, not hunted." At the garden gate, Captain Lorenzo stood with 2 guards, their halberds gleaming. "Sister Cecilia," he said, voice clipped, "this is no place for strays. The Vatican isn't a shelter." "I understand, Captain," she replied, keeping her tone even. "But the Holy Father himself asked me to look after it. You suggesting we defy him?" Lorenzo's jaw tightened. "The Holy Father? He knows about this creature." "He does," she said, folding her arms. "And he's not asking for a debate. He's asking for a piece of bread and some kindness." The guards exchanged glances, their stoic masks cracking. Lorenzo rubbed his temple, muttering, "A dog. In the Vatican? What's next? Cats in the Sistine Chapel." "Wouldn't put it past us," Cecilia said with a small smile. "Now, can we let this poor thing eat in peace?" Lorenzo waved a hand, exasperated. "Fine, but it stays in the gardens. One paw inside the palace, and I'm calling Rome's animal control." "Deal?" Cecilia said, already turning back to the dog. But as she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary stray. Those eyes, scarred, yes, but searching, felt like a message she hadn't yet deciphered. In his study, Francis stood at the window, watching the scene unfold. Sister Cecilia returned, her face a mix of amusement and concern. "Well?" he asked, turning to her. "He's eating," she said. "But the guards aren't thrilled. They're calling it a breach of protocol." "Protocol?" Francis repeated, voice tinged with irony. "Sister, you know what protocol does." builds walls, keeps things out, people, animals, even God sometimes. I'm done with walls. She nodded, though unease lingered. Holy Father, why this dog? Why now? He looked at her, gaze piercing despite his frail frame. Because he's alone. Because he's hungry. Because no one else sees him. Isn't that enough? Her throat tightened. She'd heard him preach about the forgotten, refugees, the poor, the broken, but this was different. This was personal. I'll make sure he's cared for, she said softly. Good, Francis said, settling back into his chair. And sister, don't let the guard scare him off. He's got a place here. I can feel it. As Cecilia left, she passed Brother Matteo in the corridor, practically bouncing with excitement. Sister, you won't believe this. I told some seminarians about the dog, and they're sneaking food from the kitchen to feed him. She groaned. Matteo, we're trying to keep this quiet. The last thing we need is a Vatican dog scandal. Too late, he grinned. They're calling him the Pope's pup already. Great, she muttered, but a smile tugged at her lips. Something about this scrappy dog was stirring the Vatican's rigid world, and she wasn't sure whether to be nervous or thrilled. Over the next few days, Esteban became a quiet fixture in the gardens. Sister Cecilia brought him water and scraps, always under Francis's watchful eye from his window. The Pope's morning walks, once solitary, now had a new rhythm. He'd shuffle to the old fountain, a piece of bread in his pocket, and wait. Hey, friend, he'd whisper, kneeling stiffly on the grass. You're still here. Good for you. Esteban, still skittish, watched from a distance, his limp more pronounced in the morning chill. But day by day, the fear in his eyes softened. One morning, he crept close enough to take the bread from Francis's hand, his nose brushing the Pope's fingers. There you are, Francis said, voice thick with warmth. Braver than half the cardinals I know. Brother Matteo, who'd taken to accidentally passing by, couldn't resist chiming in. Holy Father, you're going to make him fat with all that bread. Francis laughed, a sound that echoed through the gardens. Better fat than afraid, Matteo. Besides, he's earned it. Sister Cecilia says the guards are warming up to him, Matteo said, crouching to get a better look. Captain Lorenzo tossed him a sausage yesterday. Did he now? Francis said, raising an eyebrow. Maybe there's hope for Lorenzo yet. But not everyone was charmed. In the palace, whispers grew among the staff. Father Giuseppe, a stern priest overseeing Vatican protocol, cornered Cecilia in a hallway, his face pinched with disapproval. Sister, this dog nonsense is getting out of hand, he said, voice low but sharp. The Holy Father is unwell. He doesn't need distractions. The Vatican isn't a petting zoo. Cecilia held his gaze, unflinching. Father, the Holy Father asked for this. You saying his judgment's flawed? Giuseppe's eyes narrowed. I'm saying it's inappropriate. A stray dog in the gardens. What's next, letting it sleep in his chambers? If that's what he wants, then yes, Cecilia shot back. He's not asking for your permission, Father. He's asking for our help. Giuseppe scoffed, adjusting his cassock. This will end badly, sister. Mark my words. The world's watching, and we can't afford to look like a circus. Then maybe the world needs a circus, Cecilia said, voice steady. Something to remind them what love looks like. She walked away, heart pounding. Giuseppe wasn't wrong. The Vatican's image was sacred, carefully curated. But Francis had never cared about image. He cared about souls, human or otherwise. And Esteban, with his battered body and searching eyes, was a soul that had found its way to him. That evening, Francis sat with Sister Cecilia in his study, a rare moment of quiet amid the day's chaos. Tell me, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Does he have a name yet? The seminarians are calling him the Pope's pup, she said, smiling. But I don't think it suits him. Francis nodded, fingers tracing the edge of his desk. Esteban, he said after a pause. From the Hebrew for steadfast. He's been through hell, but he's still here. That's a crown worth wearing. Esteban, Cecilia repeated, testing the word. It fits. He's teaching us something, Francis said, eyes distant. We build these walls, protocol, tradition, power, and think they protect us. But they don't. They keep out what matters. Like him. Cecilia swallowed, voice soft. Holy Father, some of the staff, they're not happy. They think it's unbecoming. Let them, Francis said, a spark of defiance in his voice. Jesus ate with sinners and washed dirty feet. If a dog in my garden is unbecoming, I'm in good company. She smiled, but worry lingered. What if they push back? Father Giuseppe's already talking about standards. Francis leaned forward, gaze piercing. Cecilia, the world's falling apart. Wars, hunger, hate. If a dog eating bread in my garden is their biggest worry, they need to look in the mirror. Now, make sure Esteban's got water. And tell Mateo to stop raiding the kitchen. She laughed, bowing slightly. Yes, Holy Father. As she left, Francis turned back to the window, where the garden lay bathed in twilight. Esteban was out there, curled under a tree, eyes glinting in the fading light. The Pope whispered a prayer, not for himself, but for the scrappy dog who'd wandered into his life and refused to leave. And in that moment, something sacred began to unfold, a story not of power or protocol, but of a love so simple, so stubborn, it would echo far beyond the Vatican's walls. I don't care what the Holy Father says. That dog's gotta go before the press turns the Vatican into a laughingstock. Father Giuseppe slammed his hand on the table in the small meeting room, his voice cutting like a blade through the tense morning air. A week after Esteban's arrival, the scruffy dog had become the center of a storm within the Holy See, rattling walls built on centuries of tradition. Meanwhile, Pope Francis, despite his fading health, found quiet joy watching Esteban from his window, as if the dog were a flicker of light in his darkening days. Sister Cecilia stood in the corner, arms crossed, fighting to stay calm. This meeting, called by Giuseppe, was his attempt to squash the dog situation before it spread further. But Cecilia knew the Holy Father wouldn't back down easily. Father Giuseppe, she said, voice steady. The Holy Father named him Esteban. He wants him to stay? You're asking us to go against his wishes. Giuseppe's eyes narrowed, fingers tapping the table. I'm asking us to preserve dignity, sister. The world's watching. A stray dog roaming the Vatican gardens. They'll think we've lost control. Maybe they should. Brother Mateo, sitting quietly at the table's end, blurted out. He ducked his head as Giuseppe glared. I mean, maybe the world needs to see the Vatican has a heart. A heart. Giuseppe scoffed. This is the Holy See, not an animal charity. Captain Lorenzo, what do you think? Lorenzo, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, shrugged. I said from the start, the dog's trouble. But, he hesitated, voice lowering. I tossed it some sausage yesterday. Didn't bite me, so I guess it's not a threat. Cecilia hid a smile behind her hand. So the captain's gone soft. Don't push it, sister, Lorenzo grumbled, but the corner of his mouth twitched. I'm just saying it's not dangerous. But Giuseppe's right. If the press gets wind of this, we're a joke. Then let them laugh, Cecilia said, stepping forward. The Holy Father always says, if the world laughs because we love, let them laugh. Esteban's not hurting anyone. He brings the Pope joy. Isn't that enough? Giuseppe shook his head, voice cold. The Holy Father's joy isn't the issue. The Church's image is. I'll speak to Cardinal Marconi. He'll agree that dogs gotta go. Cecilia clenched her fists, but before she could reply, the door flew open. Sister Lucia, a young nun, burst in, panting. Sister Cecilia. The Holy Father, he's in the garden. With the dog. And there's a kid. Everyone froze. A kid, Giuseppe repeated, voice dripping with disbelief. What do you mean? A little girl. Lucia said, eyes wide with excitement. She snuck into the garden, no idea how. She's playing with the dog, and the Holy Father. He's laughing. Cecilia didn't wait. She bolted from the room, Mateo and Lorenzo scrambling after her. Giuseppe muttered about chaos, but followed, unwilling to miss whatever was unfolding. In the garden, under the shade of an olive tree, Pope Francis sat on a wooden bench, his frail hands gripping his cane. Before him, Esteban rolled in the grass, tail wagging furiously as a 7-year-old girl with tangled hair tossed a small stick. Her giggles rang out, clear as a bell. Come here, pup, she called, clapping her hands. You're so good. Francis smiled, his eyes brighter than they'd been in weeks. What's your name, little one? He asked, voice gentle. Anna. She replied, not looking up from Esteban. Is this your dog, Grandpa? Francis laughed, the sound echoing. Not quite, Anna. But he's my friend. And you? How'd you get in here? Anna shrugged, petting Esteban. There's a hole in the fence. I saw the dog from far away, so I crawled through. My mom's gonna yell, but I don't care. This pup's too cute. Cecilia rushed up, breathless, and stopped short at the sight. Holy Father, are you alright? This girl, we don't know where she came from. I'm fine, Cecilia, Francis said, waving a hand. Anna, here's my new friend. And a Stabbins. Anna looked up, finally noticing Cecilia. Who are you? You take care of this pup too? Cecilia smiled, kneeling to her level. I'm Sister Cecilia. This is a Stabbin. Weren't you scared sneaking in here? Nope, Anna said, stroking a Stabbin's head. This pup looked sad. I wanted to make him happy. Plus, this grandpa's nice. Mateo, just arriving, burst out laughing. Grandpa. Anna, you just called the Holy Father Grandpa. Anna blinked, confused. What's a Holy Father? Francis waved a hand, eyes twinkling. Just an old man who likes dogs, Anna. Don't worry. But Lorenzo, striding up, wasn't amused. Holy Father, this is a serious security issue. A kid sneaking into the garden. If the press finds out, we're done. Then let them write, Francis said, voice calm. A little girl and a dog. What's so scary about that? But, Lorenzo started, but Cecilia cut him off. Captain, hear that girl's laugh. See the Holy Father's smile. This isn't a problem. It's a miracle. Giuseppe, arriving out of breath, stared at the scene in horror. Holy Father, this is unacceptable. A child, a dog, in the Vatican gardens. We need to get this girl out now. Anna shrank against a Stabbin, eyes wide. I'm not going anywhere. This pup needs me. Francis raised a hand, his voice sharper than usual. Enough, Giuseppe. Anna stays until we find her mother. And a Stabbin stays. This is my garden, and I say they're welcome. Giuseppe stiffened, but didn't argue. As you wish, Holy Father. But I warn you, this will have consequences. Consequences? Francis echoed, eyes narrowing. Giuseppe, I've lived long enough to know what real consequences are. It's when we shut the door on those who need us. When we choose image over heart. I won't let that happen. Anna, oblivious to the argument, hugged a Stabbin tighter. Does this pup have a home, Grandpa? Francis smiled, resting a hand on her shoulder. He does now, Anna. Right here. Later, Cecilia and Mateo took Anna to a small room in the palace, where they contacted her mother, a flower vendor near St. Peter's Square. While waiting, Anna chattered about Stabbin, how she'd seen him from afar and felt he was lonely. Cecilia listened, her heart warming. I think the Holy Father's right, Mateo whispered as Anna played with Stabbin. This dog, it's changing everything. Not just the dog, Cecilia said, watching Anna. It's what he brings. Love, presents, things we've forgotten. But Giuseppe wasn't done. That evening, he cornered Lorenzo in a corridor. Captain, you have to back me. We need Cardinal Marconi to step in. The dog and the kid are the last straw. Lorenzo sighed, shaking his head. Giuseppe, I don't like this any more than you. But did you see the Holy Father today? He laughed. First time in months. Maybe we should let him have this. And let the Vatican become a joke? Giuseppe snapped. No, I'll handle this. In his room, Francis sat by the window, staring into the dark garden. He thought of Anna, Stabbin, and the walls he'd spent his life trying to tear down. God, he whispered, if this is my final lesson, let it touch their hearts. Stabbin, curled under a tree outside, lifted his head, as if hearing the prayer. And in that moment, a greater story began to unfold. A story of love that needed no titles, of presence that broke through every barrier, and of a dog quietly changing the heart of the Vatican. We can't let a dog and a kid turn the Vatican into a circus. The Holy Father's losing his grip, and I'll prove it. Father Giuseppe shouted in the closed meeting room, his voice ringing like an accusation. 2 weeks after Stabbin and Anna's arrival, the Vatican was caught in a storm of controversy. News of the dog and the girls sneaking into the gardens had leaked, and the press was starting to ask questions. Meanwhile, Pope Francis, though his health waned, found strange strength in the simple moments with Stabbin and Anna, as if they were medicine for his weary heart. Sister Cecilia stood outside the meeting room door, eavesdropping with a heavy heart. Giuseppe had summoned Cardinal Marconi and a handful of clerics to discuss the situation. She knew he was pushing to force Francis to remove Stabbin, and possibly Anna, to protect the Vatican's image. Father Giuseppe, Cardinal Marconi, a tall, gaunt man with a deep voice, spoke up. You say the Holy Father's losing control. That's a serious claim. What's your evidence? Evidence? Giuseppe sneered, holding up an Italian newspaper. Here. Stray dog and lost child in Vatican Gardens. The press is mocking us. And the Holy Father? He's playing with a dog instead of preparing for the upcoming summit. Cecilia clenched her fists, itching to barge in but holding back. Brother Matteo, beside her, whispered, "Sister, we've got to do something. If Cardinal Marconi listens to Giuseppe, Esteban's gone." "Not just Esteban," Cecilia replied, voice low. "Anna too. Her mother's struggling. If they kick Anna out, she'll lose the only safe place she has." Matteo blinked, confused. "What do you mean? Anna just snuck in a play, right?" Cecilia sighed, pulling Matteo away from the door. "Anna's mother is a widow, working at the flower market. She told me Anna runs away because there's no one at home to care for her. The Holy Father knows, and he wants to help. Esteban, he makes Anna smile. He keeps her here." Matteo's eyes widened. "So the Holy Father's protecting them both?" "Exactly," Cecilia said. "But Giuseppe doesn't care. He just wants the Vatican to look perfect." In the garden, Francis sat on his familiar bench, Anna beside him, tossing an old ball for Esteban. The dog, less skittish now, chased it, tail wagging furiously. Anna laughed, but Francis noticed a sadness in her eyes. "Anna," he asked gently, "do you miss your mom?" Anna stopped tossing the ball, hugging Esteban. "Yeah, Grandpa. But Mom's always busy. Home's boring. Here, I've got the pup in you. It's better." Francis nodded, his heart aching. "You know, I was sad too, a long time ago, when I was a boy in Argentina. But I learned something. Love always finds a way to reach us. Like Esteban found me. Like you found us." Anna looked up, eyes bright. "Does this pup love you, Grandpa?" "I think so," Francis smiled, petting Esteban. "And he loves you too. He doesn't say it, but I see it in his eyes." Anna grinned, hugging Esteban tighter. "I love him too. And you?" Francis chuckled, but a coughing fit shook him. Anna grabbed his hand, worried. "Are you sick, Grandpa?" "Don't get sick, okay? We'll play with the pup." "Don't worry," Francis said, squeezing her hand. "I've got time left to play with you and Esteban. But you have to promise me. Always take care of those who need you, like you take care of him." "I promise," Anna said, nodding fiercely. Just then, Cecilia and Matteo rushed into the garden, bringing bad news. "Holy Father," Cecilia panted. "Father Giuseppe's convincing Cardinal Marconi to get rid of Esteban. They say you're losing control." Francis raised an eyebrow, voice calm. "Losing control?" "Cecilia, I've never had control. Only God does." "What did they say about Anna?" "They want to send her back to her mother," Matteo said, glancing at Anna. "But they don't know her mom's struggling. If Anna leaves, she'll—" "I'm not leaving," Anna interrupted, clinging to Esteban. "I'm staying with the pup. And Grandpa." Francis smiled, but his eyes sharpened. "Cecilia, take Anna to lunch. I'll talk to Giuseppe and Marconi." "But Holy Father," Cecilia protested, "you're weak." "Let me—" "No," Francis cut in, voice firm. "This is my fight. Esteban and Anna are my family. I won't let them be cast out." Cecilia nodded, though worried. She took Anna's hand, leading her to the palace, while Matteo stayed with Francis. "Holy Father," Matteo said, voice shaky. "Do you think you can convince them?" Francis looked at Esteban, lying at his feet. "Matteo, I've faced wars, poverty, and division. A few angry clerics don't scare me. But I need you to do something." "Anything," Matteo said, eyes bright. "Find Anna's mother," Francis said. "Ask what she needs, money, a job, or just someone to listen. The Vatican isn't just stone walls. It has to be a home." Matteo nodded, sprinting off. Meanwhile, Francis stood, leaning on his cane, and headed to the meeting room. Esteban, sensing something, followed, his limp steady but determined. In the meeting room, Giuseppe was mid-rant when the door opened. Francis entered, Esteban at his side, stunning everyone. Cardinal Marconi stood, bowing. "Holy Father, we didn't know you were coming." "I know what you're discussing," Francis said, voice calm but sharp. "About Esteban. About Anna. About the Vatican's image." Giuseppe stiffened. "Holy Father, we're only trying to protect the church. The press is—" "The press," Francis interrupted, pointing to Esteban. "This dog hasn't hurt anyone. He brings joy to a lonely girl and an old man nearing the end of his days. That's what you want to take away." Marconi cleared his throat, voice cautious. Holy Father, we're concerned about stability. You're unwell, and these events could be misconstrued. Stability? Francis echoed, eyes blazing. Marconi, I've seen wars destroy cities, poverty steal children. A dog and a girl aren't instability. They're hope. Esteban, as if understanding, nudged Francis's hand. Giuseppe shook his head, voice bitter. Holy Father, you're turning the Vatican into a joke. Francis stared at him, voice low. Giuseppe, if love is a joke, I'm happy to be the fool. But I won't let you cast out those who need me. Esteban stays. Anna stays. If you disagree, say it to my face. Silence fell. Marconi finally nodded. As you wish, Holy Father. But we'll need to manage the press. Then manage it, Francis said, turning away. And leave Esteban alone. That evening, Matteo returned with news. Anna's mother agreed to let her visit the Vatican daily, provided the Vatican helped her find stable work. Francis nodded, smiling. Good, Matteo. This is what I want. A church that opens doors, not closes them. In the garden, Anna hugged Esteban, whispering, Pup, you're my best friend. Francis watched them, his heart lighter than ever. He knew his time was short, but with Esteban and Anna by his side, he felt certain. Love, no matter how small, would always find a way to win. If the Holy Father thinks a dog can save the Vatican, he's living in a fantasy. We need to act before this all collapses. Father Giuseppe hissed in a dark corridor, his voice thick with frustration as he spoke to a shadowy journalist. 3 weeks after Esteban and Anna became the Vatican's focal point, external pressure was mounting. Headlines about the Pope's stray and mystery girl in Vatican gardens spread globally, plunging the Holy See into a media crisis. But within the palace, Pope Francis found an odd peace beside Esteban and Anna, as if they were a small flame keeping him steady in the storm. Sister Cecilia, passing through the corridor, overheard the conversation. She froze, heart pounding. Giuseppe's talking to the press, she whispered to Brother Matteo, who was with her. He's trying to sabotage the Holy Father. Matteo frowned, voice tense. Sister, if the press runs a smear, they'll pressure the Holy Father to kick out Esteban and Anna. We've got to stop him. But how? Cecilia asked, eyes flashing with anger. Giuseppe's got Cardinal Marconi's ear, and the press is hungry for dirt. We need the Holy Father to know. In the garden, Francis sat on his usual wooden bench, Anna beside him, playing with Esteban. The dog, stronger now, chased a rubber ball Anna tossed, tail wagging furiously. But Francis, though smiling, looked frilier than ever, his face pale after a night of relentless coughing. Grandpa, Anna said, pausing her game. You tired? My mom says when you're tired, you gotta sleep. Francis chuckled, ruffling her hair. I'm tired, Anna. But having you and Esteban here makes me stronger. Know what? Anna shook her head, hugging Esteban. Why, Grandpa? Because of love, Francis said, voice low. Love doesn't need words or titles. It just needs presence. Like how Esteban stays with me. Like how you're here. Anna nodded, not fully understanding. I want to stay here forever. With the pup and you. Francis took her hand, eyes distant. You will, Anna. But sometimes, we have to let love lead us, wherever it takes us. Cecilia and Matteo rushed up, faces etched with worry. Holy Father, Cecilia panted. We heard Father Giuseppe talking to a journalist. He's leaking stories to tarnish your image. Francis raised an eyebrow, unsurprised. Giuseppe, I figured he wouldn't stop. What's he saying? They're calling you out of control, Matteo said, voice shaking. They say Esteban and Anna prove the Vatican's in chaos. Anna frowned, clutching Esteban tighter. They're talking bad about my pup. I hate them. Francis smiled, resting a hand on her shoulder. Don't hate, Anna. They're just scared. They think love makes us weak. They're wrong. But Holy Father, Cecilia said, if the press runs with this, they'll push you to get rid of Esteban and Anna. What do we do? Francis looked at Esteban, lying at his feet, then at Anna. We tell the truth. Not to the press, but to the world. Cecilia, arrange a small meeting with a few journalists. Not to defend, but to share. Cecilia blinked, confused. Share? About Esteban and Anna. About love, Francis said, voice firm. About why I'm here. If the world laughs, let them. But they'll listen. Matteo hesitated. But you're so weak. If you meet the press, They'll see. They'll write about your health. Francis nodded, eyes gleaming. They'll see an old man nearing his end, loving a dog and a girl. And maybe, they'll see something bigger, a church that's not afraid to love. Cecilia nodded, though worried. I'll arrange it, Holy Father. But Giuseppe won't like this. Let him, Francis said, standing with his cane. Anna, take Esteban to play. I've got work to do. Anna grinned, tugging Esteban away, while Cecilia and Matteo watched Francis with awe and concern. Sister, Matteo whispered, is he really going to take on the world for a dog and a kid? No, Cecilia replied, eyes on Francis. He's taking on the world for love. And we're with him. That evening, Cecilia cornered Captain Lorenzo in a corridor, hoping to sway him. Captain, she said urgently, Giuseppe's leaking stories to the press. You know the Holy Father's right. Esteban and Anna aren't the problem. They're the answer. Lorenzo sighed, shaking his head. Sister, I don't like Giuseppe, but he's got a point about the Vatican's image. The press will tear us apart. Then let them, Cecilia said, voice sharp. Captain, you've seen Anna smile? You've seen the Holy Father stronger with Esteban. You want to take that away? Lorenzo looked down, voice low. I don't. But I've got a job to protect the Vatican. Protect its heart, Cecilia said. Not its stones. Help us, Lorenzo. Stand with the Holy Father. Lorenzo was silent, then nodded. I'll keep an eye on Giuseppe. But if this blows up, don't blame me. Meanwhile, Giuseppe met Cardinal Marconi in private, pushing for intervention. Cardinal, the Holy Father's letting emotions cloud his judgment. We need to act. Get rid of the dog. Send the girl away. Restore order. Marconi rubbed his chin, voice cautious. Giuseppe, I understand your concern. But the Holy Father was clear. Esteban and Anna stay. You want me to oppose him? Not oppose, Giuseppe said, voice low. Protect him. He's weak, vulnerable. If the press attacks, his legacy will crumble. Marconi shook his head. His legacy is built on love, not headlines. I won't interfere, Giuseppe. Be careful. You're treading a dangerous line. Giuseppe stormed out, furious but undeterred. He resolved to contact the journalist again, promising an exclusive about Francis's decline. The next day, Cecilia arranged a small meeting with 3 carefully chosen journalists, all agreeing not to ask about Francis's health. In a modest reception room, Francis sat, Esteban at his feet, Anna beside him clutching a ball. The journalists, initially skeptical, were soon drawn in by his simplicity. Holy Father, Maria Rossi, a reporter, asked, why keep this dog? It's controversial. Aren't you afraid of the impact on the Vatican? Francis smiled, petting Esteban. Maria, I fear many things. War, poverty, hatred. But a dog? No. Esteban teaches me what I'd forgotten. Love doesn't need titles. It needs presence. And the girl, another reporter, Paolo, asked, glancing at Anna. She snuck in. Aren't you worried about security? Francis looked at Anna, eyes warm. Anna's a gift. She reminds me the church isn't stone walls, but hearts. If a girl and a dog can find their way here, maybe God's saying something. Anna, unfazed, piped up. This pup's my friend, and Grandpa's the best. The journalists laughed, the tension easing. As the meeting ended, Maria Rossi took Francis's hand, voice thick with emotion. Holy Father, I came for a story. You gave me a lesson. Thank you. Francis nodded, smiling. Share that lesson, Maria. The world needs it. That evening, Maria's article went live, titled Love in the Vatican Gardens, the Pope and His Unexpected Friends. It went viral, earning thousands of positive comments, overshadowing Giuseppe's rumors. But Cecilia knew the battle wasn't over. Giuseppe was still scheming, and Francis's health was deteriorating. In the garden, Francis sat with Anna and Esteban, watching the girl play. Anna, he said, voice hoarse, if I'm not here one day, will you take care of Esteban? Anna nodded, eyes bright. Yes, Grandpa. I promise. But don't go anywhere, okay? Francis smiled, but his heart was heavy. He knew his time was running out, but Esteban and Anna gave him hope that their love would endure, even after he was gone. The Holy Father's dying, and that dog's still by his bed. It's the final insult to the Vatican. Father Giuseppe roared in his private quarters, his voice dripping with fury as he spoke to Cardinal Marconi over the phone. A month after the positive article about Esteban and Anna went viral, Pope Francis's health had deteriorated sharply, confining him to his bed in the apostolic palace. Yet even as death loomed, Esteban never left his side, and Anna, now allowed daily visits, brought smiles that lit up the room. Meanwhile, Giuseppe, isolated after his media failure, plotted one last move to erase what he saw as Esteban's stain on the Vatican. Sister Cecilia stood by Francis's bedside, checking his temperature, her heart heavy. His condition was worsening fast, but his eyes still sparkled when he looked at Esteban, curled up beside the bed. Anna, sitting on a chair, drew a picture of the dog, whispering to it. "Holy Father," Cecilia said softly, "you need rest. Anna and Esteban can wait." Francis shook his head, voice weak but firm. "Cecilia, they're not a burden. They're why I'm still here. Don't you see? Love never leaves." Anna looked up, holding her drawing. "Grandpa, I drew the pup. Does it look like him?" Francis smiled, taking the picture. "It's perfect, Anna. You're an artist. Keep it for me, okay?" Anna nodded, eyes bright. "Okay, but you gotta get better to play with the pup." Francis took her hand, voice hoarse. "I'll always be with you, Anna. One way or another." The door opened, and Brother Matteo rushed in, face pale. "Sister Cecilia, Holy Father, Giuseppe just met with a journalist. He's saying you're unfit to lead. He wants Cardinal Marconi to declare you incapacitated." Cecilia clenched her fists, furious. "Giuseppe dares. After everything, he still won't stop." Francis coughed lightly, but his eyes were sharp. "Giuseppe's afraid of losing control. But he doesn't understand. I never wanted control. I just wanted to love." Anna frowned, hugging Esteban. "That guy's mean. Why do they hate my pup and Grandpa?" Francis ruffled her hair. "They don't hate, Anna. They've just forgotten what matters. Cecilia, call Marconi. I need to speak with him." "But you're so weak," Cecilia protested, worried. "Let me." "No." Francis interrupted, voice resolute. "This is my final lesson. I have to speak." Cecilia nodded, hurrying to fetch Marconi. Matteo stayed, looking at Esteban. "Holy Father, do you think Esteban knows you're sick?" Francis smiled, touching the dog's head. "He knows, Matteo? And he stays? That's real love. It doesn't leave, no matter how hard it gets." In the meeting room, Marconi sat across from Giuseppe, his face stern. "Giuseppe, you've gone too far. The Holy Father's weak, but his mind is sharp. You want me to declare him unfit? That's betrayal." Giuseppe slammed the table, voice shaking. "Betrayal? I'm saving the church. That dog, that girl, they're symbols of chaos. The press will destroy us." Marconi shook his head. "The press is praising the Holy Father. Maria Rossi's article changed how the world sees us. You're the only one seeing chaos." Giuseppe stood, face red. "You'll regret this, Marconi. When the Vatican falls, don't blame me." Just then, Captain Lorenzo entered, voice low. "Giuseppe, enough. I heard you talking to that journalist. You're trying to overthrow the Holy Father." Giuseppe spun around, furious. "You dare spy on me? I'm doing this for the Vatican." "No," Lorenzo said, stepping closer. "You're doing it for your ego. The Holy Father's right. Esteban and Anna are the heart of this place. I'm with him." Giuseppe froze, but before he could respond, Cecilia appeared. "Cardinal Marconi, the Holy Father wants you. Now." Marconi nodded, leaving the room, leaving Giuseppe seething in silence. Lorenzo looked at him, voice cold. "Be careful, Giuseppe. You're digging your own grave." In Francis's room, Marconi bowed as he entered. Esteban lifted his head, nudging Francis's hand, as if guarding him. Anna, still clutching her drawing, eyed Marconi warily. "Marconi," Francis said, voice faint but clear. "I hear Giuseppe wants you to declare me unfit. What do you think?" Marconi knelt, voice thick with emotion. "Holy Father, I'd never do that. You're the heart of the church. Esteban, Anna, they're proof of your love." Francis nodded, smiling. "Good. But I need you to do something. When I'm gone, make sure Anna and her mother are cared for. And Esteban, he needs a home." Anna burst into tears, hugging Francis. "Grandpa, don't say that. You can't go." Francis stroked her hair, eyes wet. "Anna, I'll always be here, in your heart, in Esteban's eyes. Will you take care of him?" "I promise," Anna sobbed, clinging to Esteban. Marconi nodded, voice trembling. "I swear, Holy Father, it will be done." Cecilia, in the corner, wiped tears. Holy Father, you've changed everything. Not just for Anna and Esteban, but for all of us. Francis smiled, looking at Esteban. Not me. Loved it. It always finds a way to win. That night, Francis slipped into a coma, his breathing faint. Esteban stayed by the bed, never moving, as if he knew time was running out. Anna, brought by her mother, sat beside him, holding his hand, whispering, "Grandpa, thank you for giving me the pup." The next morning, Francis passed away, a faint smile on his lips, his hand still touching Esteban's fur. The bells of St. Peter's tolled, and the world mourned. But in the Vatican gardens, Anna and Esteban sat together, her drawing placed by an olive tree, a reminder of a love that never dies. Giuseppe, stripped of his position after his betrayal, left the Vatican in silence. Marconi kept his promise, ensuring Anna's mother had a job and Esteban a home in the gardens. Maria Rossi's final article, The Love Legacy of Pope Francis, spread worldwide, telling the story of a man, a girl, and a dog who taught humanity that love, however small, is the strongest light. Francis and Esteban's love didn't end. It lives in Anna, in those who heard their story, and in every heart brave enough to love without fear. So if this story touched you, share it. Subscribe to With Jesus every day and hit the bell to catch our next stories. Together, let's keep the flame of love burning.